The desert was silent, except for the wind, a low, unending whisper that moved like breath through an ancient sleeping world. In the heart of Egypt's western desert, far from the known pyramids and pharaohs, lay something far older, and far stranger. Locals called it the Singing Stones. To the untrained eye, they looked like scattered slabs of rock, but anyone who stayed long enough to listen would swear they heard them hum. The sound wasn't random. It had rhythm. It had tone. It was almost alive. Dr. Marcus Hale, an archaeologist with a passion for unsolved mysteries, led a small expedition to this forgotten site. He had read old Bedouin accounts describing stones that call to the wind. Most scholars dismissed them as folklore. But Marcus believed there was truth buried beneath myth. There always was. When he and his team arrived, they immediately noticed how unnatural the layout looked. The slabs were arranged in concentric circles, each block weighing several tons. Yet they weren't rough-hewn like most ancient stones. These were smooth, precise, as if machined by something far beyond the reach of primitive tools. "Impossible," whispered his assistant, Clara. "Even laser cutters would struggle with this kind of finish." Marcus didn't answer. He knelt beside one of the blocks, pressing his ear against the cool stone. It was faint at first, a vibration, a low note resonating through the rock. Then, as the desert wind picked up speed, the sound deepened. It became a haunting harmony, multiple pitches overlapping, merging, creating something eerily musical. The team froze as the air filled with that unearthly choir. The Singing Stones were alive with sound. That night, they set up instruments, microphones, resonance meters, and frequency scanners. As the wind howled, data poured in. The stones emitted consistent tones between 30 and 80 Hz, below the human voice range, but steady and organized. Marcus noticed the frequencies weren't random, they formed patterns, mathematical intervals repeating in perfect sequence. "It's like they're programmed," he muttered, staring at the readouts. At midnight, something extraordinary happened. As the wind shifted direction, the tones aligned, a deep, harmonic resonance filled the valley, and the vibrations made the sand tremble. The air shimmered, as if the world itself was humming along. The equipment recorded massive spikes in sound energy, too uniform to be natural. When the storm passed, everything went quiet again, except for the crackling of their radio. But the readings told another story. Clara stayed up analyzing the patterns long after the others had gone to sleep. When she ran a spectrogram analysis, she froze. The resonance data wasn't just sound, it formed a visual pattern. Straight lines, crosses, numbers, coordinates. She ran the data again, then a third time. It wasn't a coincidence. Someone, or something, had encoded coordinates within the sound waves. The location pointed to a barren region deep beneath the Red Sea Mountains, hundreds of miles away. A place where no human had reason to go. At dawn, Clara woke Marcus and showed him the results. These stones aren't natural. They're transmitting information, directions. Marcus stared at the screen in disbelief. But who built them? And how could anyone? He stopped. A low hum rose from the stones again, soft, deliberate, almost like a response. The wind wasn't blowing this time. Yet the stones were singing on their own. The team's equipment flickered, their lights dimmed. One of the speakers emitted a static whisper, a faint series of clicks and tones that sounded eerily like Morse code. Clara wrote them down, her hand trembling. When she translated them, the message was chillingly simple. "We are waiting." That single phrase shattered every assumption they had. The Singing Stones weren't relics. They were messages, beacons from something ancient, something intelligent. Marcus stared across the sand, where the sun rose blood-red behind the dunes. "What if," he said quietly, "we're not the first civilization to stand here? What if they were calling for someone to come back?" The desert wind carried that question into the endless horizon, and the stones hummed once more, as if answering in a language too old for humanity to remember. The coordinates led drive Marcus Hale and his team to a place that seemed untouched by time, a vast, jagged mountain range in eastern Egypt known locally as Jabal al-Mawt, the Mountain of Death. For centuries, the Bedouin had avoided it, whispering tales of travelers who disappeared into the stone and never returned. To scientists, it was just another unexplored region. To Marcus, it was where the truth waited. It took 2 days of driving through barren wasteland to reach the exact coordinates. The GPS froze repeatedly, showing random numbers before shutting off entirely. Clara checked her compass, the needle spun wildly. Magnetic interference, she muttered, but the look on her face said she didn't believe her own words. When they reached the site, it didn't look like much, just a sheer cliff face, wind-carved and lifeless. But as the sun dropped behind the mountains, shadows revealed something hidden. Straight lines, angles, patterns that no natural rock formation could make. Under the orange glow of dusk, they saw it clearly, a perfectly symmetrical doorway carved into the mountain, half buried in sand and dust. Marcus brushed his hand over the surface, the same cold, polished texture as the singing stones. "It's identical," he whispered. "Same material, same precision." They worked through the night, clearing the entrance with shovels and drones. As the sand fell away, they found symbols etched above the doorway, spiral patterns, celestial arcs, and a cluster of dots that matched the constellation Orion. It wasn't just decoration, it was a map. When they finally stepped inside, the air turned heavy, almost electric. Their flashlights illuminated smooth, featureless walls, no tool marks, no seams. The tunnel descended deep into the mountain, spiraling in perfect geometric curves. The deeper they went, the quieter it became, until the world outside felt like another planet. "Whoever built this," Clara whispered, "they understood more than we do." At the base of the tunnel, the path opened into a vast chamber that defied comprehension. The ceiling stretched hundreds of feet high, carved from a single slab of black stone that shimmered faintly when their lights passed over it. In the center of the room hovered an enormous metallic sphere, at least 20 feet across, suspended silently in midair. It didn't hang from wires or rest on supports. It floated, completely motionless, defying every law of physics they knew. Marcus approached cautiously, his heart pounding. "It's not magnetic," he murmured after scanning it. "No gravitational field, no heat signature. It's just there." As they circled the object, they noticed faint engravings glowing across its surface, spirals, equations, and what looked like star maps. Clara recognized one immediately. "That's Andromeda. That's thousands of light years away." The sphere emitted a faint hum, low but powerful enough to make their bones vibrate. When Marcus raised his camera, the feed distorted, the image twisted, showing flickers of strange symbols across the screen before cutting to black. Every electronic device they had began to fail. Batteries drained instantly, drones crashed mid-air, and the emergency lights flickered. With a pulse that matched the sphere's rhythm. Then came the whispers. At first, Marcus thought it was the wind seeping through cracks in the stone. But the air was still. The whispers were rhythmic, syllables, repeated in an ancient cadence. None of them understood the language, yet it stirred something deep inside, as though the sound had been waiting in their memories all along. Clara clutched her recorder. "It's speaking," she breathed. They stood frozen as the sphere pulsed once, a wave of blue light rippling across the chamber walls. The symbols around them shifted and rearranged, aligning into patterns like constellations. For a brief moment, the carvings formed a perfect map of Earth, then zoomed outward, past the solar system, into deep space. "Are we seeing their home?" one of the technicians whispered. Marcus didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on a final image forming on the sphere, a human handprint. Slowly, as if recognizing their presence, the sphere rotated. The hum deepened, and the air around it shimmered with static energy. The stone floor trembled beneath their feet. "Everyone out!" Marcus shouted. But before they could move, the sphere released a blinding pulse of light. Every device in the chamber went dead, and for a split second, they felt weightless. Then the world went silent. When they came to, hours later, the sphere had returned to its original calm state, floating, motionless, humming softly as if nothing had happened. But something had changed. On the wall behind it, glowing faintly, were symbols that hadn't been there before, the same symbols from the singing stones. And beneath them, written in a script no one could explain, were 3 words that sent a chill through every soul in the chamber. "We are returning." The rescue report stated simply, "No survivors found. Site inaccessible." But what truly happened inside Jabal al-Mawt was far beyond any official explanation. When weeks passed without contact, an Egyptian research unit was sent to locate Drive. Marcus Hale's team. Their last transmission had ended abruptly, a flash of static, a brief hum, and then silence. The coordinates were clear, but when the rescue convoy reached the site, they found only wind-scoured sand and unbroken stone. There was no sign of the tunnel, the camp, or even tire tracks. It was as if the mountain had swallowed everything whole. Only one thing remained, a drone. It lay half-buried near a dried riverbed miles away from the coordinates. Its memory core was damaged, but one fragment of video survived. It showed Marcus's team moments before their disappearance. The footage began inside the massive chamber. The sphere hung silently, glowing with a faint bluish hue. Marcus's voice could be heard, low but steady. "Record everything," he said. "Whatever this is, it's aware of us." Then the hum began again, deeper this time, resonating through the walls like the heartbeat of the mountain. Clara pointed toward the sphere. "Look," she cried. A thin crack had appeared across its surface, spreading slowly like a living vein of light. The sound intensified, a harmonic tone that vibrated through the camera feed, distorting the image. When the sphere finally split open, a dense mist poured out, swirling in impossible patterns, glowing softly as it spread through the chamber. The mist seemed intelligent, moving deliberately around each person, touching their faces like curious fingers of light. Marcus stepped forward, eyes wide. "It's responding to us," he whispered. "It's not a weapon, it's communication." But then came the shapes. Figures emerged within the mist, tall, radiant silhouettes with elongated forms, their skin shimmering like molten silver. They moved gracefully, neither walking nor floating. And their eyes, deep, liquid gold, reflected a calm intelligence that made Marcus's breath catch. One raised a hand, palm outward, and the hum ceased instantly. Total silence filled the chamber. Clara's voice trembled. "Who are you?" No sound came from the beings, yet every member of the team heard the answer, not with their ears but inside their minds. "You have awakened what was never meant to sleep." The mist grew brighter. The walls of the chamber began to ripple, like reflections on water. Marcus dropped his camera, reaching out toward the light. "Wait, we need to understand." The footage ended there, cut by a surge of static and blinding light. The drone must have been thrown clear during whatever followed, because the next frame showed nothing but empty desert, no mountain, no chamber, only sand stretching endlessly under the sky. After that day, the government declared Jabal al-Mawt a restricted zone. Satellite images of the region were blurred or replaced entirely. Journalists who tried to investigate were turned away or disappeared themselves. Some said an underground facility had been built to contain whatever was beneath the mountain. Others whispered of the Resonance Project, a secret collaboration between global agencies to study the humming frequencies that now echoed faintly beneath the Earth's crust. Months later, strange events began occurring across the world. In Peru, sensors detected low-frequency vibrations emanating from beneath the Nazca lines, the same tonal frequency recorded from the Singing Stones. In Japan, divers exploring the Yonaguni ruins reported seeing glowing symbols underwater that matched the ones on Marcus's recordings. Even in Antarctica, a seismic team claimed to hear a deep, rhythmic hum pulsing from the ice. It was as if something ancient had reawakened, and the Earth itself was responding. Clara's journal, recovered from a secondary camp near Luxor, offered one final clue. Her last entry read, "The stones, the sphere, the sound, they're connected. Not from here. They're part of a network buried across the planet. We didn't find an artifact. We found a signal receiver. And it's no longer dormant." After that, her handwriting ended abruptly, the pen tearing through the page as though she'd been interrupted mid-sentence. In the years that followed, Marcus Hale's name became legend among fringe historians and conspiracy theorists. Some claimed to have seen him in remote regions, working under aliases. Others insisted he was taken, not by governments, but by the same force he had uncovered. Meanwhile, across deserts, jungles, and ocean floors, low, haunting vibrations continued to rise from ancient stone structures, the same notes that had once sung in the Egyptian desert. Engineers tried to dismiss them as seismic anomalies, but when mapped globally, those vibrations formed patterns, circular waves converging toward a single point in the Middle East, the exact coordinates of Jabal al-Mawt. And then, one night, satellites detected a brief energy surge from that location, the same frequency recorded the day Marcus vanished. It lasted only 6 seconds. But across radio frequencies worldwide, a faint whisper broke through static in a voice that was not quite human, yet unmistakably aware. "We are returning." The signal stopped. The world fell silent again. But somewhere deep beneath the sand, below the mountains that once hid humanity's oldest secret, something stirred, humming softly, waiting for the wind to sing once more.